This video will include zero film study, to be honest with you. It will be solely a commentary video. I will discuss some data related to personnel groupings because there's been a lot of discussion or posts on social media about personnel groupings, and there's been not just jumping to the conclusions. There's been people who are flying to conclusions based on personnel data that they have no information about whatsoever. But we're here to first talk about the Ravens wide receiver and tight end groups. I have some of the guys pictured there. Of course, I don't have any of the guys they drafted: Charlie Kolar, Isaiah Likely, and of course they didn't draft any wide receivers, but they got a crap ton of undrafted free agents that are all kind of big, have good size, make contested catches. So there's a lot to be said and a lot of inferences to make. So real quick, let's look at the depth chart. Obviously, Bateman, Duvernay, Prochet would be your third guy in your 11 personnel groupings, your third receiver in your 11 personnel groupings. Tight end group, really a source of strength right now. And that's with Nick Boyle there. Who knows what his health is going to be? If he's 100%, then wonderful, great. But certainly did not look at last year. This offensive line group, I've spoken about it before at length. Incredibly deep group, versatile, especially when you're talking about guys like Macari. Versatile guys, they have a lot of options there. And I mean, look at this. You have these two guys as fourth string tackles. I don't know, whatever string they are, but looking at it as Macari being the next best guy, I guess, if Ronnie Stanley can't go. A lot of depth there. Really exciting. I don't know how you feel about the offensive line, but let's get to the offense. We're talking about the receivers and the tight ends. And are they below average? Are they average? What are they if the Ravens don't sign anyone else? If they don't sign any free agents, we all want Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf. I'm one of the main ones. I wanted Drake London or Jamison Williams, but if we don't sign anyone else, and we've gotten rid of Marquise Brown, are we a below average group there? I don't think so. I really don't. I think the way that they're going to be deployed will benefit the guys. They'll be put in positions to succeed, to be honest with you. I do not think that we're going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time in 13 personnel like so many other people think. It's hilarious to read some of those posts. I've had to put a lot of people on mute on Twitter. I'm going to show you some data about 13 personnel a little bit later, too. I really don't think that Devin Duvernay and James Prochet and Tylan Wallace are anywhere near as bad as people think. I think they've got a lot more ability than we suspect. And it's funny, there was this huge clamoring for Prochet to get more snaps, get more opportunities in the regular season last year, and a lot of complaints about Marquise Brown. Remember there was 3 games where he had 10 targets and only 40 yards? Miami was one of them. Of course, that was a crazy, weird game down there on the Thursday night. Nobody played. I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of guys did not play well. Coaches did a really poor job. And we threw all those screens to Marquise Brown. Remember all the complaints after that game about Marquise Brown's no good on catching bubbles? Marquise Brown doesn't catch the ball and get upfield. He catches over the wrong shoulder. I mean, I did point out a couple of those things myself. But all the complaints about him, and then there's just uprising when Marquise Brown is traded away to a team in the other conference for a first-round pick. Shocking to me. But we're not as bad at receiver as we think. And what I'd like to do tonight is go over some of the things that the Ravens will be able to do with their personnel group. Now, this is pretty basic right here. We've got guys who've been with the Ravens for a long time. Bateman, Prochet, and just you guys can look at this information if you wish. If not, no problem. It's 11 personnel versus 4-2-5 nickel. So I'll have 2 high safeties drawn up in all these diagrams that I'll talk about briefly in terms of what the Ravens could do out of them. It's 11 personnel. We got J.K. Dobbins on the field. I think I got J.K. Dobbins at running back for each one of these diagrams. So pro twins is here, tight end, and a flanker or a Z. And then twins is to the other side. And then this is B, so the back is away from the tight end. If you're unfamiliar with my terminologies, no problem. You probably have your own terminology for this. But obviously, it's an 11 personnel grouping, an 11 personnel formation. Now, just so you know, sometimes those things don't match up. Sometimes you get an 11 personnel personnel grouping, but not an 11 personnel formation. So let's say, for example, they were to put Andrews back here in the backfield. Let's say they were to put him here for whatever reason, so he would not be in this location. That'd be an 11 personnel group, but a 20 personnel formation, meaning 20 is 2 running backs. Now we know that Andrews is not a running back, but if he was to be set back here, obviously you would classify him as a fullback. So sometimes the personnel grouping doesn't match the formation that's offered. Pro Twins is one of your basic standard 11 personnel formations and the way to attack people. And the reason why I have the nickel, just so you know, the reason why I have the nickel set over here, last year most of the time people set the nickel to the side of Mark Andrews. They weren't going to set the nickel over here and then leave Andrews with all this space to operate in and only 2 DBs to deal with Andrews and the number 1 receiver. So that's typically what the Ravens would see last year. Let's look at a couple of other 11 personnel groups and formations. All right, so bunch right, popular formation for the Ravens. Now, oftentimes when we run bunch right, the point man will be here, and the inside guy will be here, and then the outside guy would be here. And we like to run stretch to the side. Actually, there was one piece of that I messed up. When we run stretch at a bunch, we run it at a pistol. You can tell the Ravens. And if you want to complain about Greg Roman being predictable based on the backfield set, go right ahead. Co-signed. Actually, I don't co-sign it. I lead the signing. Y'all are co-signing it. I have been saying that for years, for 2+ years. Now, I do not, however, have the same complaints about personnel groupings, and I'll address that later. So this 11 personnel group, Mark Andrews set to the right, and backside you got what we have to do this season. No matter who's backside, whether it's Bateman, whether it's Andrews, if we were to go get a guy like Julio Jones or, blessings upon blessings, we go get DK Metcalf. What we've got to do is we've got to make them keep this safety backside. Because what a lot of teams were doing is rolling coverage, walking someone down in the box, kicking these linebackers over, to the side where we have the bunch, and just saying, we're going to live with this backside. We really did not target Bateman enough backside. We kind of started to realize it down in Miami. Late in that game, like late third quarter, fourth quarter, we started to attack backside against their sticks coverage, and Bateman was killing them. He was killing them. He did the same thing against Cleveland. Remember those 2 beautiful catches up the left sideline up at Cleveland on the road? One of them should have been his first NFL touchdown, but it was incorrectly ruled down at the 1. But what we've got to do is make them keep the safety backside so we can attack over here. Now it's going to be when we have Andrews over here, and God forbid, we put the back on this side. We go to bunch A. Just so you know, B means back opposite the tight end. So the diagram I have here, the back is on the left and the tight end's on the right. A would be the back over on this side. If you're interested in my terminology, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter or something like that. We like to run a lot of stretch out of pistol, as I talked about here. You got all kinds of stuff like this that we do when we motion. This is what we did against Denver. We motioned Duvernay across, and then he ran the wheel. Looks like he's going to threaten deep, and then he sits it back along the sideline. This corner got off with him against Denver and then tried to recover, and it was too late. Duvernay was wide open. When we run a lot of the wheel stuff, we'll run a snag concept. Some people call this a hook route. I mean, whatever you want to call it. It's just a snag. Snag concept typically has him, going to the hash and essentially, in some cases, replacing the drop that this inside linebacker would have. So normally, when you get a snag concept, let me draw that up again. So there's your wheel sit by Duvernay in motion, and a snag by number 1, which is Bateman. Typically, and you can probably already guess this if you're a real football guy, when you get this, you're getting the back, cross, and face. And so what they're looking for is this linebacker to go. Sometimes you'll get the guard pull. So when you get the guard pull, then a lot of times, and the back cross face too with a mesh, then you're generally going to get this linebacker moving. So once you get him moving, this snag is often wide open. You got the wheel and the sit, or the wheel with Marquise Brown. We ran that wheel with Marquise Brown against the Bengals at home in Week 7 up the left sideline. If you remember, he ran the route out of bounds, slightly out of bounds. I can't really blame him. The DB was hedging him out of bounds, but he ran the route out of bounds, and I think he caught it like a yard and a half out of bounds. But in any case, some of the things they can do to the backside to keep people honest, excuse me, I should say, if they're not being honest, let's say this safety's over here. Let's say he's pre-rolled. The safety's over here. He's pre-rolled. Is go ahead and motion backside. And the Ravens did a lot of this stuff. So don't sit here and be like, well, they don't do this stuff. Yeah, they do. The Ravens do this stuff. Now, what you can say is, though, and Josh Hoffman has made this point many, many times, is the Ravens take too damn long to get lined up. And Lamar either is not allowed to or not given the time to audible to a play like I kind of just drew up. One more 11 personnel formation, I believe. So this time we've got the opposite of the bunch stuff generally. Although we're not bunched up here, but we've got trips. Okay, so this is what I call trips. 3 receivers to one side, and then A would be the back. Generally would be the back to the tight end. Most people on defense call the strength. Call the strength trips. So in my system that we generally ran, we would call A gun to the side of the trips, whether the tight end was in the trips or not. Not to bunch, however, especially not a tight bunch like I drew up earlier, where I had the point man here, the inside guy here, and the outside guy here. Hopefully that makes sense to you. What I love about this stuff is you're forcing the team, the defense, to take the nickel defender and send him to this left side, right? Away from our guy. So you're generally going to get this corner's drawn up way too wide. I don't know why I left him there. You're generally going to get a corner and a safety backside on Andrews. In some cases, you'll get the safety rolling high and this guy spinning down. Generally, when we've got Andrews backside, you're talking about they're going to leave 2 guys here to try to take away that threat. Just trying to show you guys some of the things that can be done with the personnel that we have. You know, this is all old stuff. We ran a lot of 11 personnel last year, particularly after, Lamar Jackson went out. We ran a lot of 11 personnel stuff with him, though. The Colts game in Week 5, we ran a shit ton of 11 personnel, just so you know. All right, let's move forward. All right, 12 personnel. We're moving up the hierarchy here. This is one of my favorite formations called twin wing. 88's a new one. This is Charlie Kolar's number, I believe. So 6'7", passing tight end, not supposedly not a great receiving tight end. You could do this a lot of ways. The Ravens would do this twin wing sometimes, and this would be Ricard. So then it's not 12 personnel. Then 12 personnel. Then it's 21 because Ricard is classified as a fullback. We're talking about pre-snap. So if there was a penalty before we lined up for our offensive formation, let's just say we're in a 21 personnel group, the defense is going to match. Now I do have on this diagram, I have 4-3 shell. The will linebacker is typically not going to be this far out. I got him drawn up a little far. This basically looks like a 4-2-5. If you're new to my channel, there's your 4-2. And then here's your 5. 3/2 to this side. And then 2/2 to this side. That's the 5. All right, so I kind of have this mislabeled, or number 1, or I have this guy drawn up too wide. He would typically be lined up. The will would typically be lined up in this area here and be responsible for the B gap on run to him, or responsible for force and let this guy play B gap, depending on whatever they play. But in any case, what 12 personnel is going to do, and this is where we're really getting to the meat of this video. We're 13 minutes in, so sorry. Hopefully some of you stuck around. What 12 personnel is going to force teams to do is declare. So I have 4-2-5 drawn up here in terms of nickel, basically, even though I have this labeled 4-3, which is a base defense. Teams are going to have to declare. If they line up with their 4-3 personnel, we could move Andrews or Kolar over here and get back into a trip set like I drew up a couple of plays ago or a couple of formations ago and really stress this will linebacker into covering space that he's not really suited to cover. Now, the will in a 4-3 is generally a guy who's quicker, but we could do it the other way too. We could keep these guys right here and motion Duvernay across. So now we've got the trips, or really it's Trey is what it is, to the strong side to where the Sam backer theoretically would be. Theoretically, that'd be the Sam backer in a 4-3, with this being the Mike and this being the Will. So, and again, something that Josh Hoffman and other people have continued to mention is the Ravens have got to get lined up quicker. They've got to give Lamar the ability to audible and call, make hot calls based upon how the defense is lined up, what personnel they have on the field. Because sometimes we call a play, let's say we call a run play, and they line up in their base 4-3, and the Will is here, and the Mike is here, and they kick this D end down, and the Sam lines up here, well, then they're putting themselves in better position. It's slid 50, or the underfront is essentially what I just drew up. They're putting themselves in better position to stop a run play to the strong side. Lamar might want to audible, and we have to give him the power to do that. He's certainly capable of doing that, savvy enough, intelligent enough. His awareness mid-play illustrates to me that he's incredibly intelligent about the game of football. I will entertain zero conversation that he's slow processing or not a smart player. I'll just delete your comment, or I'll just ignore you, I guess, really, like I ignore people on Twitter. All right, let's move to the next formation. 12 personnel still, and same guys on the field. All right, still Bateman backside, Duvernay still on the field. You could put Prochet here, you could put Tylan Wallace here, whatever. And so somewhat similar to what I had drawn up out of 11 personnel, whereby Andrews is backside. But one of the things the Ravens do when Andrews is lined up tight here is they love the over concept. They love this over shit. You know, and they'll do stuff like they'll run 2 clear outs. You can do anything you want with this guy here. You can run him across, you know, zone step all these guys here. And then what that basically creates is a run action with Lamar, and you hit the over route. Now, we hit this against Denver. We hit this against the Colts. It was that unbelievable throw against the Colts by Lamar, where Lamar stuck it between, like, there was the corner, there was the free safety over the top, there was like a nickel safety who was recovering this way, and I think there was even like a backer underneath here. And Lamar, I don't know if you remember it, I chronicled it many times on my channel against the Colts. Sick throw. There was some jackass months ago who was like, let me see an example of Lamar throwing someone open, because it's never happened. Like, he stuck it between 4 defenders perfectly. If you don't remember it yet, it's the one where a corner for the Colts knocked himself out by hitting Mark Andrews and knocking Mark Andrews down. But in any case, we're talking about 12 personnel, formations and ways to attack people. You're creating a 3-by-1 set, 3 here, which is trips. And then that 1 to the backside's lined up tight. You know, he could run your over concept, which Mark Andrews is great at. You know, he could run up the seam and then sit, which he does some as well. He also last year, you know, beat people on some of these routes. Against the Raiders, we missed him on that one. I think we missed him maybe against the Lions on that corner route, that flag route. Just showing you guys some things that can be done out of 12 personnel. Very simple, very basic, nothing, you know, rudimentary. We're not going to be running a whole lot of option next year. Don't kid yourself. I'll go ahead and put it out there right now. The Ravens are not going to be running a whole lot of read option. Now, are they going to run it? Yes. Are they going to practice it? Yes. When are they going to use it? Late in games. I'm putting it out there on faith that the Ravens coaches are smarter and their organization is smarter. They're not going to force this man right here to run the ball, design run plays 6, 8, 10 times in the first half when we have so many freaking playmakers on this team. We just drafted Charlie Kolar, playmaker, tight end, 6'7", good catching skills. Not a great blocker. Isaiah Likely, in my opinion, you know, similar vein as Charlie Kolar. Now, one of my good buddies on YouTube, EA Ground, he did a video. I sit down and watch his stuff when I can, and he illustrated and showed that Isaiah Likely was a better blocker than, in my opinion. I thought Isaiah Likely was a little soft, particularly on ISO blocks for Coastal Carolina. But point being, we've got weapons. We do have weapons. We're going to get a free agent wide receiver, one. You know, maybe it's Landry, Julio Jones. I hope it's not Will Fuller, even though I'm a Will Fuller fan. Maybe we get DK or Debo. You know, maybe we do. If we don't, we've got all these UDFAs. One of them's going to be eligible to play. I really like Emeka Abizi. 6'3", 220, 6'4", 220. Guy made plays, especially against Andrew Booth, that caught my attention. Mekhi Polk, seriously talented player, if you ask me. All right, now, the next personnel grouping, moving on, should be 13 personnel. Should be. I'm going to digress here. We're at 20 minutes for this video. We're probably going to be 6-8 minutes just on this data. I prefaced this video with something on my YouTube channel with a post basically asking people to assess this data and try to determine which data matches the following years: 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Because after we drafted Charlie Kolar and Isaiah Likely, there was some of the most ridiculous conversation on social media that I have ever seen. Basically, The Ravens are going back to 13 personnel. Now, I'm not saying it's ridiculous to have that opinion. Obviously, if we have 4 tight ends on the roster, Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle, Charlie Kolar, Isaiah Likely, there's going to be some times we're in 13 personnel. But the idea was the Ravens are going back to a 2019 offense. They're not going to show any of the evolution they showed in 2021 at all. And if you don't think they showed evolution in 2021, put your name up in the comments so I can go ahead and make some more videos, hopefully get a whole lot of views, and I can prove you wrong. Because the first 8-9 weeks, I guess we're 8-3 at one point, so we're talking about through 11 weeks, I guess. The Ravens' offense had evolved greatly. They had shown the ability. T. Martin and Keith Williams and other guys, maybe Urban, the quarterback coach, had an influence. They did. I don't care if it was Greg Roman or them. I don't care. Why do you care? Why do you care so much? Who the hell came up with the evolution? I mean, for real. And then there's the people that are like, fire Greg Roman. Fire Greg Roman. But they never mention them other dudes' names. You're a trip. You're a hypocrite is what you are. That's what you are. Because you should call out the whole offensive staff. And I'm cool with that. I am. I'm cool with that. But don't just call out one coach. Because you look like a hypocrite. All right, I've given you enough time now and I've ranted. So, which year do you think each of these is? So we'll say 1, 2. I mean, if you're one of those people that thinks we're going back to 2019, we're going back to running the read option. We're going to run, I've seen it. We're going to run Lamar 20 times a game. We're going to kill he's not going to, what the hell are you talking about? The front office and the coaches want him to come back. And you think they want to run him 20 times a game? I mean, that's insanity. Insanity. And I'm sorry if you have, some issues, those of you that hold those opinions. I mean, get them handled. What do you think these years are? 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. They're all in there. Now, you can go look them up. You can go look them up if you wish, and that's cool. I mean, this is pre-recorded. I mean, we got 13 personnel. Let's look at these. Let's do it this way. Most of these years you're talking about, no, these are off center here. These are off center here. Bad graphic by me. My bad. Maybe I should have been ranting less and making better graphics, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So you've got 13 personnel. There you go. All of them. You got some squares. You got some misshapen squares. You got a quadrilateral. We got good stuff going on here. Which year do you think is 2021? 2021. Which year did we use the most 13 personnel? Here's your answer. 2021 is choice number 1. 2% of the time we were in 13 personnel. We were in 21 personnel 22% of the time. So that's the Ricard influence. Now, nothing in this video is about Ricard. I'm not omitting him intentionally. I'm going to do a separate video about 21 personnel, 22 personnel. And so just so you're aware. All right? 2020, the year we get our playoff win up in Tennessee. We're in a tough game in Buffalo. Down there near the goal line, we throw a pick 6 to that Taron Johnson, who's a hell of a football player. I fault the coaches for the play call there. I mean, Lamar, for the decision to throw it and where he threw it as well. I don't know if it's 50-50 blame, but I believe it was the 3rd down there. I would have rather had something where we move Lamar out of the pocket, like a sprint out situation, give him the option to throw it or run and get on the move because he can make plays. I did not like the empty call. Buffalo had a tendency in that area of the field. Maybe it was the 7-yard line, maybe the 6. I'm not sure. Buffalo had a tendency to drop a lot of people back in the end zone. By the way, I'm giving you guys time to cheat and look up your data right now. Buffalo had a tendency to drop a lot of guys in coverage, and they did. And Lamar threw it right to Taron Johnson, targeting Mark Andrews. Pick 6, game over, 14-3. We were right there otherwise. Maybe that made it 17-3. My apologies. We were right there otherwise. So 2020, ready? This one right here. So we used a ton of 13 personnel, right? And we used about the same number of 21 personnel. Here's your two numbers. I know I got a lot of drawing up here. Forgive me. There's your two percentages for 21 personnel right there. So pretty much in line, right? Pretty much in line. I mean, no, not a whole lot of difference. I think the 11 personnel staying about the same, 43, 47. 12 personnel staying exactly the same, 9 and 9. I'm talking about percentages, not total plays. You're generally talking about 1,100 or 1,200 plays over the course of a season, just so you know. All right? Obviously, though, huge difference from 20 to 21 is 22 personnel. Look at that. I wonder, I don't know if y'all ever been in the trainings or professional developments. It's like, and they tell you, find one thing that I wonder about. I wonder about this. I wonder if the influence of 22 personnel, or the increase, excuse me, is that Bateman missed the first 5 games, and then Sammy Watkins had injury problems. But I could be wrong there. I know it's not the game that Josh Johnson played because I don't think Ricard was healthy. I don't think he was active that game. So huge increase in 22 personnel. And if you've looked up the data by now and I'm wrong, man, like just tell me in the comment section. All right, 2019, you should recognize the pattern by now, right? 2019 is obviously, I didn't do any mix-ups here. I didn't take the peanuts or whatever and mix them up at all, or whatever that is. I just put them in straight order and tried to be slick. And then this one down here is 2018. So 2019, we ran 15%, 13 personnel. 2020, we ran 16%. Last year, we didn't hardly run it at all. Well, Boyle was injured. Hayden Hurst gone. Well, he'd been gone already. So I get it. We had Tomlinson was our third tight end, so that's why, right? Well, now we drafted 2 tight ends. So, Coach, you're making the point for me. We're going back to 13 personnel. No, we're not. No, we're not. They're not going to go back to 13 personnel. We don't have the same guys. Isaiah Likely is Hayden Hurst, Coach. Charlie Kolar is Nick Boyle. No, he's not. And you know what? Right now, Nick Boyle's not Nick Boyle. He's not. He's not the same guy. I challenge you. Prove to me that you can know in May. It's May 3rd as I record this. How do you know on May 3rd? Or how'd you know on May 1st? It was some people the day the draft finished, which I think was April 30th, on social media talking about, we're going back to 2019 offense. We're going back to running the ball. We're going to run Lamar to death out of 13 personnel. First of all, we're really heavily weighted run pass when Ricard is on the field, not when we have 3 tight ends on the field. There's a such thing called big slot, and some of the formations I showed you, kind of show that, where you take a tight end and you put him in the slot. Specifically Andrews. We're going to go over some 13 personnel formations here in a moment if you've stuck around this long after me ranting. The initial iteration of Lamar at quarterback, not much in terms of 13 personnel at all, right? 7%. Me personally, I would want to avoid 22 personnel as much as possible. If we were going to be in 21 personnel that'd be okay with me because that's going to guarantee we get base defense on the field. Then we can slide Ricard down the tight end and move Andrews out to receiver. So essentially, our 21 personnel can really be 11. And you may be like, I don't understand that. Or Coach, you sound stupid. It can be 11 because we can basically just bump Andrews out to receiver and then bump Ricard down to tight end. Now, am I saying that Ricard is as effective as a tight end? No. As guys like Boyle, Charlie Kolar, Andrews, maybe even Isaiah Likely. No, I'm not. So that was just a little exercise in the data, illustrating to you that, yeah, we ran a lot. We ran more 13 personnel in 2019 and 2020, but we didn't run hardly any at all in 21. So if you want to say that we're drafting 2 tight ends and no receivers to go ahead and go 13 personnel, I got one question for you. Then why did Eric DeCosta say they were going to go after a receiver early? Now, he said early. Now, let's think about the picks we had. We had 14, and then we traded for 23. So which of those picks means early to you? Early, is somewhat synonymous with before. So that would be 14 to me. Well, if you're going to pick up 14, there's only certain guys you're going to target. Jameson Williams, Drake London, maybe Chris Olave. The Ravens were going receiver at 14, guys. Eric DeCosta admitted it. He said as much. So where does that leave you if you're one of those people who says they're going 13 personnel and they're going to run Lamar to death on April 30th or May 1st or May 3rd? You're so smart that you can tell us that. Please comment that in the comment section of this video, not the live stream chat. I mean, do it in the live stream chat too, but do it in the comment section so I can screenshot it. And then I can come back to them hopefully during the season. I'm going to be busy as hell during the season, but it's crazy for you to think you know what formations, what personnel groupings we're going to be in during the season. I can't know. Obviously, none of us can know. Me first. I admit I can't know. Why can't you? No way you know. Hell, Greg Roman and them probably don't know. They're developing the system now, hopefully. And hopefully they use what the Ravens used early in the season. You know, we had no running game, and Lamar Jackson willed this team to the number 1 seed in the AFC after 11 weeks, maybe 12, something like that. I think 8-3 had us at the number 1 seed. So there's no reason for us to think that he will do otherwise this year. I'm not down with all that regression talk. I'm not. There was specific fact. You take any team, Tom Brady's team, Josh Allen's team, Patrick Mahomes' team, and you give them 23 people on IR or 23 people out at various points in the season, I can guarantee you their performance is going to suffer. It's ridiculous. The greatest basketball player in the history of basketball, Michael Jordan. If you took Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, Ron Harper, all of those dudes off his team, and you just put the next guy up who was off the bench and was clearly a third-string guy, Michael Jordan's performance is going to suffer. It is. All right, 13 personnel stuff, and then we'll be out. 13 personnel formations, I should say. You got Andrews here, Charlie Kolar here, and then I think Isaiah Likely has been assigned number 80. So the cool thing you can do, and this is 4-3 two shell again. Everything is 2 high safeties that I got drawn up. You know, I got a Sam walked out here to Andrews, but the cool thing about 13 personnel is obviously you're going to get base defense on the field. Because now what it depends on is one of these 3 guys has to be able to block as an inline tight end. If we're going to go 13 personnel and get... Now, that was what Nick Boyle offered us. We can line Nick Boyle up. And so I don't have Nick Boyle in these formations because I don't know what his status is. But clearly he could be on the field if he's healthy. We could line Nick Boyle up as an inline tight end, meaning right next to the right tackle or the left tackle, and he could block. He could do a good job. So you were going to get base defense on the field against 13 personnel typically. The difference, and this is the genius of what I think the Ravens have done. And it's okay if you're pissed off about some of the stuff I said. That's cool. And if you're pissed off about the Ravens not drafting a receiver, I mean, that's cool too. But you cannot deny this. If you go base defense, and these 2 guys are quality receivers, along with this guy, and that's the key if you ask me, Mark Andrews can take 13 personnel and turn it into 12. Because he can step out and line up at receiver. He's essentially lined up at receiver right here. He can step out and line up at receiver at any time. And then that changes the dynamic in a lot of ways. You know, so let's get to some other formations. And then get you guys out of here if you've stuck around this long. I appreciate it. 13 personnel could be a weapon for the Ravens. Don't get me wrong. Mentally, for me, it's a little bit of a stretch to imagine us in 13 personnel more than 10, 12, 14% of the time. I know the percentages in 19 and 20 was 15% and 16%, right? But you can't have it both ways if you ask me. You're going to get, if you go 13 personnel with this roster, you're going to get athletes on the field. You're going to get Kolar on the field. You're going to get Likely on the field. I don't think there's necessarily a place for Josh Oliver. Trey Wright B. So B, meaning the back is opposite the tight ends. All right, now in this case, though, what we've done is we've created a 12 personnel formation because we've set Andrews over here as the X and then Bateman over here as the Z. So receivers are interchangeable. I'm sure you guys know that already. Bateman, if he is the X next year, isn't always going to be the X. Sometimes he'll be the Z. Sometimes he'll be off the line to the tight end side. So what we've done is we've kept you in your base personnel, and then we can do some of the same stuff that we talked about with Duvernay. We can motion across, create a twin set here, and see what happens with the secondary. One team, that I think 13 personnel will be real interesting against is the Cincinnati Bengals. You know what the Bengals do not like to do? They do not like to roll their safeties out of their base defense. Now, when they go nickel, they'll roll because they've got that extra DB on the field. and they're a quality defense. I think that I've chronicled that, at least my opinion of them, a lot. But one thing they will do, excuse me, they will not do is they will not roll the safeties on motion like this. Remember the snag concept I drew up? This is one right here. And what they will not do, and this is what I would do, is roll the safety down and then just play what's called sky cover 3. Sky is safety force. So this is a safety. And then just play sky cover 3. Drop the Sam into the weak side flats. Motion declares, you call sky pre-snap, that's all you call. And motion declares, whether it's the Sam or the Will who's playing the weak side flats. Simple. Now they will not do that. So what they will do, what we can do is we can put them in conflict. We can put this guy in conflict. Snag concept. Out into the flats. We did not hit this route enough here. Because these DBs are usually off. They are usually off. What the Bengals will do on motion a lot of times is, you know what they'll do? They'll step this or run this back or out of there. They have a very unique defense. I love it. It's interesting as hell to me. 13 personnel, in my opinion, can be used to attack them. I've only gave one example. I'm not talking about necessarily us running against them. We can certainly do that. This video is designed to have a limited scope and be very basic, just to be honest with you. Bengals are a base 4-3 team, but they do run some 3-4 stuff. You guys let me know, where you are with our use of any personnel grouping. I don't see any way that the Ravens don't carry more receivers than we currently have on the roster. Than I showed you here. Right here we got 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and count Tylan Wallace as 4. Then you got Jalen Moore and Benjamin Victor, who's like 6'4", 6'5". They're clearly going with a big X philosophy. If you look at the UDFAs they brought in, and I'm real high on at least 2 of them, man. I like them. They're good players. But we're going to carry, in my opinion, 6 receivers. How does that happen, though, Coach, if you got all these tight ends? I seriously wonder about what the future of Nick Boyle is with this football team. And I know that his salary's guaranteed, like $7 million, $5 million, or something like that. So you can't really get rid of him. The young talent that they've drafted does not have the same inline blocking skills as Nick Boyle. I get that. They don't have the same ability on split zone as what he showed in 2019 and 2020. We did run some split zone. Really, we ran stretch split, or what I call stretch split. Stretch is outside zone, with the split, being the H-back or the Y blocking back on the D-tackle on the backside of the stretch concept. I offer to you that we might keep 6 receivers on the roster, and we might only keep 3 tight ends, because now you might say, well, Coach, I don't think we're going to do that because this guy right here is a receiver/tight end. I agree with that. If Nick Boyle is healthy, maybe that's the reason why they drafted Isaiah Likely. Because he can be, you have a swing tackle for your offensive line. Maybe Isaiah Likely is the swing receiver, the swing tight end. Guy who can play tight end if you need him to, can play receiver if you need him to. Obviously, he's a pretty big body. I think 6'4", 240, something like that, maybe 6'5". Let me know what you guys think of the video, what you think of some of my thoughts. I believe in what they're doing. I'm not part of the Purple Patrol. I ain't never got my badge. I've never got an invite to that club because I've been plenty critical of the coaches, particularly Tennessee in 2019. In my opinion, that was 3 people's fault. Wink Martindale, Greg Roman, and John Harbaugh. Because them 2 dudes went and visited and interviewed either during the off week, the wild card when we had a bye, or they interviewed on the Monday of game week prep. And I could be wrong on that one, but that's how I seem to remember it. You guys let me know what you think of some of my thoughts in the comment section. If you got triggered by me talking about 13 personnel, you should be, because there's no way for you to predict in May that what offensive personnel groupings we're going to be in, just because Jamison Williams and Drake London was drafted earlier than we thought they would be. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and consider, subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Appreciate you guys checking the video out.